What's up, everybody? It is fight week, right? We got UFC 280 this weekend, and headlined by Charles Oliveira and Islam Makhachev. Obviously, one of the biggest fight cards of the year, right? And one of the biggest fights of the year. And there's a real argument that Charles Oliveira has a chance to cement himself as the greatest lightweight of all time this weekend. You got to consider the list of names that Charles has fought. And don't get me wrong, the streak that Khabib went on was fucking incredible. Right? To finish your career 29-0 and to beat the people that he beat in the fashion that he did and to, really kind of clean out the lightweight division was impressive. But I think if you look at Charles Oliveira's record, he's fought bigger names. He's fought guys like Max Holloway, Cub Swanson. He's been in the UFC for 11 years and he is on an 11 fight win streak right now. And only one of them went to decision, right? All others he finished. And he has the UFC record for most submissions, right? And by the way, the decision was Tony Ferguson, and he wet blanketed him in that fight, right? Literally just got on top of Tony and fucking dominated him. And Tony was able to stay defensively responsible enough to not get submitted. But man, he also almost got his fucking arm broken that fight. Charles Oliveira is a bad motherfucker. Right? And if he wins, it also here's the thing about Khabib. When Khabib fought, they have two different styles too. This is something I think that I don't know if it plays into the factor of the greatest ever talk, but I do think that it's an important dynamic to bring up. Khabib had a much more, I'm just going to pressure the fuck out of you style, right? It's just going to keep coming. It's going to be nonstop. And I am going to eventually get the fight to the ground and work you into a position where I either control you for the entirety of the round and hit you with ground and pound, or I get the finish, right? Whereas in my opinion, at least my perception when I watch Oliveira is he does have that pressure. He's constantly coming after you, but he's so much more willing to walk into the fire, right? And he gets dropped in almost all of his fights, like Justin Gaethje, right? Poirier. It's he gets Michael Chandler. He constantly gets hurt and then he bounces back from it. So it's when you're watching Oliveira, it's much more what's going to happen, and then he somehow comes out on the other end of it victorious, and it's much more exciting in my opinion. Whereas Khabib left you with more of this inevitable feeling that this was going to end and there was nothing the other person can do about it, right? Which, when you think about that impression that you leave, is that more important to just completely dominate your opponent constantly, right? In every round, basically, of your career? Is that more impressive? Should that weigh more in the greatest conversation? I don't know. But man, the thing with this matchup this weekend that adds a little bit, at least to the argument for Charles, in my opinion, is that Islam's style, while Islam is a better striker, I think, in terms of technique at least. We really saw Khabib's boxing come along more towards the end of his career, but Islam is much more proficient, right? He's much more clean. He's much more fluid with his kicks, right? He's much more comfortable in the stand-up. And I think he would fight a much more impressive kickboxing bout, with strict rules, than Khabib would. So I think Islam's further ahead in that department, and Khabib probably more so in the grappling. But Islam's grappling is just also uber impressive. I mean, the way he submitted Dan Hooker, right? He just is... If Charles can beat him, my point is that it kind of leaves you with the impression that Charles could also handle a style similar to Khabib's. So it strengthens his argument for the greatest of all time talk. I think if Charles, especially if he can finish Islam, there's going to be real consideration about whether he's the greatest lightweight of all time. And then he's going to start entering greatest of all time talks in any division. But man, if you think about the history of the lightweight division, right? You go back, it was probably BJ Penn for a while, right? And then it hit a point where it just started changing hands frequently, right? It went through the Pettis era, Frankie Edgar held it at one point, RDA held it at one point, Conor McGregor held it at one point, Eddie Alvarez, and nobody really has held on to the title for that long. And I know the Justin Gaethje one doesn't count, but Oliveira is defending the title consistently against big names, whereas Khabib kind of fought a lot of them on the way to the top and then defended a couple after, right? So I don't know. There's those two elements to consider too. I really think people, and me personally as well, if Charles can win, I do think that you have to man, you might have to consider him the best, even above Khabib. And then it starts making you wonder. I know that he said he wouldn't and that he's retired for good, but things change, and Khabib is still human. And I do wonder if Charles beats Islam if Khabib says, I'm coming out to like prove something, to like get to 30-0 and stamp myself as the greatest of all time, right? And how old is Charles Oliveira? I don't even know. That's something I should know, right? Charles is 33. And how old is Khabib? Like 35? Right? And I know he hasn't been like competing actively. Khabib's 34. Like, I mean, like, damn. Still, it would be two guys in their athletic prime at least. I mean, I know the lack of competition, like I said, would weigh into this with Khabib. But if Charles can beat Islam decisively, it makes you wonder where Khabib's headspace is going to be, right? I don't know. We'll see. We shall see. But I don't know. I don't think anything's going to lure Khabib out in my heart, though. But like I said, things change and there's always a chance. So